Hi ladies, really excited to be sharing with you today about two hormones that really influence your fat metabolism, but also, well, lots of things to be honest, mood, your body, how it feels. So I'm going to look at your sex hormones, progesterone and estrogen today. And these are really particularly powerful if you struggle with PMS, if you struggle with menopause, if you struggle with fertility issues, bloating, just so much to be honest. What I find is a lot of women, they might feel feelings like anxiousness, bloated, they carry extra fluid, weight around the bum and thighs tends to be when these hormones are out of balance. And the feeling is generally like you're a little bit out of funky, like the body's not flowing, it's kind of a little bit funky. So as we restore balance to these hormones, what happens is the body just functions with ease and flow, like everything feels like it's going like it's meant to, and you really feel it's easy to kind of embrace your feminine essence. It's like an embodiment that comes with it, so you feel good, you don't have the symptoms that you would normally have, everything just kind of feels like it flows nicely. So when I'm going to talk about both menstruating women and menopause as well, because it's a little bit different for both, although restoring balance is similar for both as well. So in menstruating women, the flow of these hormones tends to be that you're dominant in the first half of the month with estrogen, which is this particular hormone. Estrogen tends to be more fat storing around that bum and thighs, especially when it's out of balance. It also holds more fluid and can really affect our moods when it's out of balance as well. Now, when this is in balance, it is designed to be dominant in the first half of the month, and then it sort of tapers off, and then progesterone is meant to be dominant in the second half of the month. Now, progesterone is your fat burning hormone, so it supports fat metabolism. It also is a diuretic. It is an anti-anxiety hormone, an antidepressant hormone. So it's really quite powerful. And what often happens, and I'll share why in a moment, is this particular hormone, these hormones can be out of balance. So you can imagine what happens when you have, in most cases, say more estrogen than you do progesterone. You're missing this fat burning, this diuretic, this anti-anxiety, this antidepressant hormone. So for a lot of women, this dominant part in the second half of the month for progesterone, if that starts to drop off, beautiful breeze, then what happens is they tend to have more estrogen when they're supposed to have progesterone. And so what that feels like is right before your period, you're starting to be more cranky, you're holding more fluid, like you're bloated, and these kind of feelings as well leading up to your period, basically. So for some people, when it is really out of balance, you may only have progesterone dominance for maybe 1 or 2 days when it's supposed to be like half a month. Now with menopause, these hormones are still important. It's just that they cease production through the ovaries. Now where production then ends up being is through your adrenal glands and your fat cells. So you can understand how our lifestyle and our practices are now going to influence our hormones even more so, because what happens is if you're going to produce these hormones through adrenal glands, then what happens is if you're too busy producing stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, then you're not going to be able to produce these hormones in a healthy amount. Also, as you can imagine, like if your body is getting the message of stress, which is fight or flight, which is danger, life or death, then of course it's not safe. It's not safe to bring a baby into this world. So your body will down-regulate progesterone because it's not safe to bring a baby into this world, and your body's got to produce adrenal hormones instead of your progesterone. So it's really, and fat cells as well. Like if your body's going to produce fat cells to support these hormones. So if your ovaries start slowing down the production as you go through menopause, and then what happens is your adrenal glands are preoccupied because you're busy, then what happens is your fat cells are going to produce them. So if you don't have enough fat cells to produce it, your body can produce more. So this can then cause another challenge with excess fat. So you can see how there can be this cascade effect. Now, what the main challenge that I'm going to probably speak about today is this estrogen dominance that happens. And one of those ways is predominantly through down-regulating progesterone in times of stress. Now, this is for both menopausal women and non-menopausal women as well. The other couple of ways that this can happen is estrogen's detoxed by your liver. So if it's kept in healthy amounts through this process. But what happens if your liver is, say, burdened by things like, say, medication would actually be quite good for it. Medications, toxins, chemicals, what else? Like alcohol, refined food, caffeine, these things that your liver is always going to support anyway. If your liver's like really busy, then it just goes, well, estrogen's natural, actually cholesterol is too, so I can touch on cholesterol for a moment here too. So if your I'm just waiting for this wind so that'll get picked up through the mic, but if your liver's burdened, it's just going to recycle. It's just going to drop the extra cholesterol and estrogen back in through your system. So you start getting higher and higher and higher amounts because the liver's just too busy, basically. So this is where you get recycled amounts, and it starts to increase and increase. If you've got high estrogen, high cholesterol, or high cholesterol, then that's something to consider that your liver needs some more support. One other thing to consider is estrogen mimicking chemicals as well. This can start throwing things out of balance. A main one of that is cosmetics. So I would really consider using like an organic or natural cosmetics, keeping in mind that toxins get stored in fat tissue anyway. So like your body wants to keep them away from your vital organs, so it'll move it into fat tissues. Your body's more worried about survival rather than your actual weight, so it'll store it there to keep it away from your organs. And of course then your liver's responsible for detoxing that, but if it's busy, it's busy. So this breeze is lovely but not so good for recording. So 3 things that you can really do to help restore balance of these two hormones. 1, really practicing feminine embodiment, coming back and restoring the balance between your masculine and feminine energy. And this is coming from a place where you might be like in control, a linear, being able to have things predictable, things to following timelines, schedules. This is very linear masculine energy. So just being and controlling, like allowing to release that a little bit and move more into your feminine flow, connecting with the moon, allowing yourself to flow in cycles as opposed to a straight line, whatever that shows up for you. This is how we start to return balance of flow back into our bodies as well. Dance, creative projects, anything that allows you to really come back into your body and feel it, because quite often we've jumped out of our body because of fight or flight, so all the blood's in the arm and legs, it's moved away from your reproductive organs, so these start to shut down and not function properly. So if you can come back and be present in your body, you turn your reproductive organs back on and you just become more present in your body, and it's so super powerful. You feel just, so much healing happens in this space too. Also, stress, we mentioned, it down-regulates these hormones and really throws them out of balance, throws so much out of balance. I'll speak about that another day. But this really comes down to not just the stress, but actually how you perceive your environment and stress. This is based on your programming, because stressful things can happen, but if we can allow the body to still remain in what we call like a parasympathetic activation, so in a space where it's still feeling calm, then the balance is still happening within the body. So this really comes down to reviewing your mindset, your beliefs, your emotions, how you've programmed all this into your body, and starting to retrain how you respond to life. One thing that you could do is do an exercise and write down all the things that you think should happen. So this should happen, this should happen, this should happen. And your shoulds are where you can really expand into allowing into, it would be nice if this happened, as opposed to should, where it's our response tends to be more rigid around. And finally, being able to detox and support the liver as well is going to then support the balance of estrogen and being able to be detoxed naturally by the body and using the function that it's supposed to. So lots of possible opportunities for you to lean into and put into practice, keeping in mind, you know, what resonates with you most at the moment, and just start with one or two things and then you can expand on it from there. So I'd love to hear from what you're going to put into practice this week.